Let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please note, tonight's board meeting is being video recorded. So tonight's a pretty special night. We haven't done this this is only, I think, the second time I've done it as a township supervisor, is recognize one of our retiring police officers, Rex Wilkinson. So there was a get-together this past week in the parking lot. I thought it was going to be coffee and donuts with a cop. And it turned out to be one of the most unusual events I've ever seen. And it was for one of our own. So we had our own parade for Rex. Up at the 309 movie theater, we had fire trucks, ambulance, police, motorcycle units coming down 309, and they pulled into the parking lot. And the parking lot here had a whole bunch of people in it, and of course, room for all that equipment. I was surprised, and it would be nice for all of us when we retire to get the gold watch in, have a nice parade like that. But it doesn't happen very often. But Rex is one of our finest. Most of you may not know this, but the Lower Gwinnett Police Department is probably the most educated police department in all of Montgomery County. With all of the degrees that we have in our force, we have 18 sworn officers. And it's one of the things that makes Lower Gwinnett special. And I think most of the people here and most of the people I talk to will say to you that they've got a tremendous amount of respect and admiration for the police department at Lower Gwinnett. And then they throw in, well, you politicians too, maybe, but they always say the police department. And it's a lot of hard work. And I've never heard a bad thing about our police department, ever. And it's because of people like Rex that's true. So that really makes a difference, and it makes it easier for the township staff and the supervisors to work in a township where you have that much respect. And that respect has been earned over many, many years. So tonight, we also have a proclamation, and I'll read it. The Lower Gwinnett Township Board of Supervisors, Montgomery County, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania proclamation. Whereas Rex assumed the position of patrol officer in February 1995. Whereas Rex was honorably discharged from the Coast Guard in 1995 after serving 4 years. And as Rex was promoted to sergeant January 2002. Rex served Lower Gwinnett Township with distinction for 26 years, receiving numerous commendations for his knowledge, dedication, and professional competence. Now, therefore, the Board of Supervisors at Lower Gwinnett Township hereby thank Rex for his job well done, and wish him continued success in a retirement in all his personal endeavors. Rex.
Not yet, Rex, you don't call it yet. Sit back down. You mind if I say a few things, Mark? Oh, that's right. Is it working? Yes. Before Rex speaks and before I have anything to say, we're pleased to have a few special guests tonight. Senator Maria Collette is here, if I could bring her forward. Rex, come on back up.
Hi there. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Good evening. I'm really glad to be here with all of you this evening. And as we recognize Sergeant Rex Wilkinson's service to Lower Gwinnett and congratulate him on his well-earned retirement after more than 26 years of dedicated service, I'd like to read part of the Senate citation I'm presenting to him tonight. Sergeant Wilkinson has served this country with honor and distinction as a member of the United States Coast Guard. He was employed as a police dispatcher for Lower Gwinnett Township before beginning his tenure as a police officer in 1995. Sergeant Wilkinson also served as a member of the Montgomery County SWAT team. To his credit, he has received many commendations for his outstanding service. Since his enlistment, Sergeant Wilkinson faithfully endeavored to preserve and protect the health, safety, and welfare of his fellow citizens. In the finest spirit of public service, he demonstrated exemplary knowledge, ability, and integrity in carrying out his many responsibilities, and earned deep respect and gratitude for his tireless devotion to Lower Gwinnett Township and our surrounding communities. On behalf of the Senate of Pennsylvania and as a Lower Gwinnett resident myself, I'd like to thank Sergeant Wilkinson for your service and formally present you with this citation. Congratulations. All the best for a relaxing and rewarding retirement. That's the Senate.
Thanks. So tonight, we are officially saying goodbye to Rex. It's been a 3-month process of saying goodbye to this guy, so I'm hoping I'll be brief. This is a very difficult time for me. I've been with Rex his whole career. So I'd never say goodbye to somebody that started after me and spent their whole career here. It has not been easy. And I know it's not easy for him either. But this is the kind of guy we look to hire. Right out of high school, right into the Coast Guard, served this country, right back to serving his community. You can't ask for something better than that. When I think about all the times we've eaten breakfast, lunch, and dinner together, you always try and think of what story would you tell about Rex? And there really is no individual story because it's been a lifetime commitment to Lower Gwinnett. And he cares. He really does. The guys that work with him, the guys and girls that work with him, they look forward to coming to work because they know Rex is in charge. He's just a special guy. We're really going to miss him. So, thank you. Rex doesn't like public speaking, but he has to say a few words.
First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out. I'd like to thank the Board of Supervisors, past and present. Mr. Brand, I think you've been here the whole time I've been here too. So thank you. I'd like to thank Chief Paul Kenny, Chief John Shawley, Chief Ken Bright, and Chief Ed Hancock for allowing me to serve the community I grew up in. It's been a nice run. Thank you all. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, so that was our goodbye of the night. Now we're going to say hello for the night. The board at their August 24th meeting approved hiring Officer Garrett Vale. Since then, Garrett's gone through a whirlwind of training. We've expedited his field training officer as a field training. And I'd like to bring Garrett forward. And I believe his parents are going to come with him also tonight. We're going to do an official swearing in. The Honorable Judge Susan Leonard is here. Judge Leonard, please come forward. And I told this story at the last, well, I tell the story every time we swear somebody in. This Bible is from 1979 when Chief Ed Hancock was sworn in as police chief. So all of our current officers are in the back there. They're trying not to crowd the room too much, but we've all used this Bible for our official swearing in, and it means a lot to us. So one thing we haven't lost in many, many years. We keep it in the same spot. So we're pleased. We're thrilled to death, Mr. and Mrs. Vale, that your son is here with us. We've gotten to know him pretty quickly. Garrett rose above all the candidates that were involved in this testing process. And in the short time he's been here, he's got several nicknames already. He is fitting right in. And he can dish it out as good as he can take it. So thank you for bringing Garrett to us. We're thrilled that he is here. He's going to have a very successful career here. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Judge Leonard.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief. Garrett and parents, welcome. I just want for the record, my name is Susan Leonard. I am the district judge for the Lower Gwynedd area. And I want to say that maybe 8 years ago, I was standing in the same position you were in a different township. And so I know what a proud parenting moment this is. And without any further ado, Garrett, rather than us pass the microphone back and forth, I'm going to have you hold it. You can hold it. That's gonna be difficult. Yeah, okay. Sorry. So you also need to raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I, Garrett Vale,
I, Garrett Vale,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania,
the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania,
and the ordinances and regulations of Lower Gwynedd Township.
the ordinances and regulations of Lower Gwynedd Township.
I will uphold,
I will uphold,
obey,
obey,
and enforce the law
and enforce the law
without consideration
without consideration
for a person's race,
with a person's race,
color,
color,
sex,
sex,
religious creed,
religious creed,
sexual orientation,
sexual orientation,
age,
age,
national origin,
ancestry,
ancestry,
handicap,
or disability.
or disability.
And
And I will discharge the duties
with officer of Lower Gwynedd Township
with officer of Lower Gwynedd Township
with fidelity.
Well, that's a great start.
Thank you, board. Thank you. Can we turn this back over?
Oh, yeah. Paul, you got anything else you'd like to?
Well, that's Garrett's last time giving the, receiving the oath. This is his third run around. He started his career in Jenkintown for 2 years. They had some financial troubles. He was laid off. He then went to Bristol Borough part-time, and we got him real quick. So that's his third go around. I think he knows the oath pretty well. That's about it. That's all we have for tonight. I want to thank the board for giving us this time before the meeting. I know you have a busy agenda. Things are going great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Some of us, it's already due.
Yeah, I just gotta say, we'll give a minute here so everybody can, who wants to move on, can. Thank you. Okay, next up is the Lower Gwinnett Township Audit. Barbara Kane Thorpe.
Hello,
Hello.
can you hear me okay? Okay.
You're good.
All right. My name is Steve Pizzaflakis. I'm a partner with Barbara Kane Thornton and Company, and I'm here to give a big picture overview of the township's audit we did for the year ended December 31st, 2020. Just some results. We were engaged to audit 2 reports that the township issues. One's the filing that gets submitted to the state. It's called the DCE report. And then the second one is this set of statements that was emailed to you last week. For both of those audits, we gave those statements an unmodified opinion, which basically means we feel that they're free material statements. The standards that we follow were the auditing standards generally accepted in the United States of America and the government auditing standards. And under those standards, it basically requires us to plan and conduct our audit to obtain reasonable assurance that your statements are free of material misstatements, which we did. As part of our audit, we did review internal controls over financial reporting. Overall, we felt the controls in place were strong and working as intended, so we didn't have any type of deficiencies noted in the report. We did have one management letter comment that we continued to recommend. It has to deal with the township developing a written accounting procedures manual, so we do continue to recommend that. Our audit approach is a risk-based approach. Basically, we target the areas where we perceive to be the greatest of risk. We do it by inquiries of management, supervisors, different employees, looking at the township's internal controls for the purpose of planning our audit approach. If there were an area where there were weak controls, it'd be an area we do additional work in, to be considered higher risk. Then we look at trend data, budget results, comparison to actual known facts, managed contracts. And then standard features is where we look at invoices and verify balances with third parties. That's kind of what we do. Next slide. Just some overall results. These are page 19 and 21 of the report. And this shows the fund balance levels of the township's funds as of 12/31. The general fund this year had an increase in fund balance of $542,000 from the previous year. And that's after transfers. This year, transfers of $2.3 million were made to other funds. And the capital reserve fund increased by $238,000 from the prior year. This is a combination of money being transferred in from the general fund exceeding what was spent for capital outlay and aid revenue sources. So end of the year, general fund end of the year, fund balance of $4.8 million, most of which is all unassigned. And then your capital reserve end of the year, fund balance was a little over $4.1 million. Open space and traffic impact funds had modest increases of $222,000 and $170,000 respectively. And then your remaining funds had an aggregate fund balance of $820,000, an increase of $108,000 from the prior year. The remaining funds are the highway aid, street lighting, fire protection, fire hydrant, recreation, and then your debt service fund. Next slide. Just some budget results you'll see in the report. This year, the revenues exceeded the budget by $1.1 million. That's mostly in the area of your earned income taxes and transfer taxes collections. Well exceeded what was anticipated. We've seen that across the board at many municipalities. So it's the same here. Your expenditures were under budget by $500,000, and you made transfers of $2.265 million to other funds, and that exceeded the original budget by $1 million. During the year, additional transfers were made to those funds at year end. And that's, that's in order to stay in line with your fund balance policy, which limits your fund balance to 35% of budget expenditures. So any excess gets transferred out. Your storm and stormwater funds, and these are the revenue expenses for the year. Pretty consistent, 2.7 versus 3 million a year before on the revenue side. 2.2 expenditures both ways, both years. This year, the general fund didn't make a transfer to set up the stormwater fund. That's different. So $382,000 transfer in. Then lastly, I want to touch on is, like I always get asked this question, is your pensions. As of year end, your police pension was 105% funded compared to the prior year of 102. The township is current on other payments for the police pension fund. And then the non-uniform pension fund was 112% funded. It's 107 year before. Basically, that means that you have more money in your trust than what the actuary is projecting the future liabilities to be. And then finally, next slide. OPEB liability. In the statements, the township reported a liability of $234,000 versus $285 the year before. The township does have a trust set up for this, and at the year end, there's $962,000 in the trust set up to fund these benefits. Next slide. There's some required communications, one-way entry. With cooperation from management during the audit, no disagreements. And the audit results were reviewed with management and elected auditors a few weeks ago. So, and then finally, point out, I don't know if this applies here, but a lot of townships have been getting federal money through some of the CARES Act money. Just keep in mind that if any year that your federal expenditures do exceed $750,000, you do have to have a separate compliance audit done. It'll be requested by the grantor of the funds. So something additional that I used to haven't done. So I just wanted to point that out also. Okay. Any questions?
Are you done?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought.
I figured that's enough. I figured that's enough. When it comes to-
So, all of this information is good. It's pertinent. It's a lot of technical information about what happened to get us there. But sometimes it's very difficult to know how you're doing compared to what. So comparing to what other townships, how would you say our OPEB is doing? Just a picture. Could you explain to everybody what OPEB is? Because they may not know.
OPEB, there are certain benefits that you offer retirees other than pension benefits that you pay on their behalf. So that's other post-employment benefits. So anything other than pension that you provide to retirees is an OPEB benefit. And basically, your liability for future payments is determined by the actuary. And some townships fund that by putting money in a trust, like you do with your pension plans. But it's not a requirement. It's not a requirement that you fund this OPEB liability. So from that standpoint, the township is doing better than several other townships because you are funding it. You have a trust set up. You put money aside every year to fund that liability. Some townships have huge liabilities on their statements and have not done anything to fund that liability. So it just continues to grow and grow and grow. So from that standpoint, I'd say you're doing better than some other townships, Ms. Burrows.
Yeah, they have an unfunded liability. That's what our actuary tells us, that that liability is going to catch up to them at some point because of the amounts of money we're talking about. But we've invested a lot along the way and kept the fund healthy. So you think we're okay with OPEB?
Yes.
Right, everybody. All right. So what do you think about pick another one, the pension? How do you think we're doing there?
I think the one thing that's here is that's the pensions you're required to fund is a state law. So there's an MMO every year that your actuary determines that it's a minimum municipal allocation you're required to put in. Your township is actually overfunding that every year. This past year, not so much because of COVID, and I don't think you know how things are going to shake out. But in previous years, if your MMO was $1 million, you routinely put in like $1.4 million. You will exceed what was the minimum required. And that's different. So you're definitely aggressive in funding those liabilities.
And well, just so you know, we funded the liability in the pension because those numbers, the market goes up and down. So there's risk associated with that. So sometimes we're on the positive side, we're overfunded like right now, and sometimes we're less than full funded. But there's compared to other townships with their pension liability, how are we?
I'd say you're better than most. A lot of townships are overfunded right now because of the market performing, but you're not at 112% funding level. They're about 100 or 101. So you are, I'd say, the top end, but doing better.
Okay, so general revenue. I mean, we've done really well. I said we, the township, but earned income tax is the primary driver here in Lower Gwinnett, and I think we're very fortunate to have citizens with the level of education and so forth, and they working home. But how would you characterize our general fund balance?
Very healthy. When you get to a point where you have to start transferring funds to other places in order to get down to your your maximum level of 35%, that's a good sign. This past year, you put $1 million into your capital reserve fund, you set up a stormwater fund, you transferred money into your parks, your different funds. Compared to your original budget, you actually transferred $1 million more than what you had initially projected the transfer during the year. So that's a good sign. When you can do that, that's great.
So again, in comparison to other townships, how do you think we're doing?
So a lot of, I feel like we audit a lot of townships in Chester County and Montgomery County. I feel a lot of them this year, when it came to the EIT, they did well, better what they thought they were. Kind of similar to how you guys did. Your EIT and transfer taxes came in way more than you thought within your expenditures were less because you weren't sure what was going to happen. So a lot of townships put capital projects on hold. But I still think you're in the top tier of townships we audit.
I mean, our size.
Yes,
right?
yeah.
So from an auditor's point of view, you would say we're adequately funded and we're really healthy, we're average healthy. How would you?
I'd say you're really healthy.
Really healthy.
Really healthy.
That's good. Do you have any recommendations how we might improve any of our internal controls or any of that?
The only recommendation that we had, and it's been there for a few years now, is that we recommend that you put in writing your accounting policies and procedures. Right now, there's nothing formalized. So, if Chuck were to leave, somebody has to come in and figure out, what the policy procedures are. That kind of, happened several years ago when it was Kathy left suddenly, and then you brought Steve in.
Right.
Nothing was documented. So I know it's a process that Steve started documenting the controls, but it hasn't been formally finished up yet. So we continue to recommend that.
Okay. Our finance director is behind you. So Chuck, you got a task to do there. So, okay. Well, thank you. Now, I want to say two things, right? Is the reason we're in the health that we are, primarily the health that we are, is because you people. The township exists to support the people who live there, and it's not the other way around. And if we didn't have this educated workforce that we have, we wouldn't have the balance sheet that we have. Well, it's also, I got to thank the staff too. There's a lot of very good administration that goes on. So we spend a lot of time making sure that we are adequately resourced. That's important to do because the regulators are always coming up with new regulations. So that's the way that is. But it's really you folks, right? The people that live in the township. And that's the difference, I think, between us and a lot of other people or in a lot of other townships. So that's very important. Do any of the supervisors have any questions for the auditor?
No, I'd like to add something though. I'd like to stand up and recognize Chuck Wilson, who's in the back. Chuck, thank you. Thank you for doing a great job and getting the advice that you received tonight. But also, I'd like to thank our township manager, Craig, and Jamie, our assistant manager, because this is a glowing marks on the way you manage this township. And between the two of you and Chuck, I'm just very proud of this type of report. And so are the residents. So thank the three of you for doing the job that you've done.
Thank you.
That's it.
Are there any other questions for the board? No, we're good. So any questions from members of the audience? Please, could you come up and be recognized, please?
Well, sure. I'm Dave Smeltzer.
No, that's all right. Well, I think we can hear you, Dave.
So, for years now, as many of you know, corporate America has been moving away from pension plans and moving more to 401k like facilities. And they've done that because pension plans have over the years become more and more expensive. And I'm just wondering what we thought about supporting our employees, and is there ever a thought of moving to a plan that can be more sustainable over the long run?
Short answer is yes, and we've done it. We've changed the pension. We have 401ks in the private sector. So a lot of companies have, they're no longer funding their pension. So new employees that come into the township, there's a similar plan for the public sector. And that's what we've gone to. So I hope that answers your question.
So just so I'm clear, new employees have a 401k and older employees
Have the
take
pension.
Is that what you said? Okay. Thank you.
Right. Did I get that right, Craig?
Yeah.
Okay, so he's keeping me straight, but yes, we thought about that. And, in one respect, we've been lucky for the last several years because our investments worked out well, but it really wasn't luck. I mean, we have our pension board. I've been on the pension board now for 12 years. And the people that are in Lower Gwinnett, as you might imagine, there's several financial experts, and we have several on the board. And they did some things that I thought were intuitive but gutsy. And we bring our financial experts in house because we use third parties as we have to, right? And even they were a little bit surprised. And when I say surprised, it did so well. So they had some advice for us, especially after the Great Recession, as to how we need to invest our money, where and why. And so when the pension expert comes to us and they go, E.F. Hutton, they're talking, and Lower Gwinnett made out after that very well because of the expertise that we got out of there. And our financial investment expert was, he's not here to talk to him, but he put us in one of the top tier of all the townships. Our balance sheet and pension is tops in all the townships that his firm manages. So we're careful. Yeah, sustainability is an issue. We know that, and a lot of us, on the board here too, we're in the private sector. This is kind of a side job in one respect, but we got to make sure the future is sustainable, and that's one of the things we did to do that. So I hope that was answering your question. Are there any other questions from the audience? No? Well, good, I think. All right. Thank you for giving us this presentation. We appreciate your hard work, and it's always nice to hear that we're on track. Thanks.
Thank you.
Next up is the receipt of the minutes for August 24th, as the board members had an opportunity to review. Okay, can I have a motion?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Next is the receipt of the year-to-date budget report, and I think we're going to table that for tonight. Okay. Next up is the minimum municipal obligation. It's called MMO for 2022. This is an appropriate conversation for tonight. Craig, you want to address that, or our finance director, or either one?
You want to
I'll just take it. This, for 2022, the minimum municipal obligation for Lower Gwinnett Township has a total of $291,021. That's $243,202 to the police pension plan, $16,655 to the employees pension plan, and $31,164 to the defined contribution plan. This is a requirement that we have to pass by September 30th. So we have it in front of you tonight for 2022's MMO.
Okay, why don't you explain what an MMO is? Because I don't think that a lot of the audience is going to know what that is.
As Mr. Katsuflakis just explained, the MMO is a minimum municipal obligation in which the municipalities have to pay toward their pension plan to meet their obligations for the pension. So every year the auditors look at our books And they determine what the minimum obligation is for the pension plan, and the township is then required to put that into the pension plans every year. So by September 30th of every year, we have to approve the obligation for the upcoming year. And this year, it's 2022.
So I'll add a little bit to that. The MMO is a number that is calculated by our actuary primarily. So they look at our actuarial assumptions, they look at the pension plan, they look at, how we're doing, they look at future obligations for payouts, and they plug into the formula that's dictated by the state actuaries, and they come up with a number. The better your pension plan is, the more well-funded your pension plan is, the better you're doing, right? It's like a bond in that you don't have to, you get a better interest rate. In other words, we're sufficiently funded that the number could be a lot higher if we weren't in the condition that we're in. So you have to fund it. The state dictates it, and they come in and they said, did you follow the rules? There's exceptions to that for townships that are in really tough shape, or municipalities. But the better we are, the lower this number is conceptually. So that means that we can use our resources for other things. And so it's like a credit rating, and a backhanded credit rating when you think about it a little bit. So the better your credit rating, the less you pay on your credit cards or that type of thing. But this number is how much we have to put into the pension plan to make sure that we're funded. So it's a real number, and yeah, it's a six-figure number, but that's how it works. Are there any questions from members of the board? Any questions from?
I do have a question. Can you just explain to me how you got up to the 54 units, the 16? I can see the 16 police officers, the 12 non-unified employees, and the 10 non-uniformed contribution employees. Where did we get to the 54?
The police, I believe, are 2 units each.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Thank you.
Any questions from members of the public?
One thing I would just add that Chris did mention, but you're talking about the lower memo, the better. We're down to the point now where the state aid will just about cover the entire MMOs.
Oh, I forgot to mention that. All right. So municipalities get state aid too, because it's in the interest of the state of Pennsylvania, the Commonwealth, to make sure that there's funding available for employees. And I forgot about the state aid. Sure. So, the condition of our plan is exceptional. You hear me say that a couple of times tonight, but the state aid comes in and they're giving us money towards the plan based on how many people are in the plan and so forth. So I didn't realize we were that good, but the state aid is covering our obligation up to a large extent. So, and you had a question.
Yeah, Edward Greer. As I understand it, you are phasing for new employees the pension out in favor of 401k. So what is based on actuarial what's the last year you expect to have to make a contribution to that?
Off the top of my head, I think we're always going to have contributions until everybody's dead, right?
Right, but when you must have.
Oh, there is, yeah, expectation of death, right? That's exactly right, there is. I don't know, that's not a number I keep off the top of my head, but we can get that number.
The police are in the pension always because of their contracts.
Okay, so there will always be pension as long as that contract is such as it's not your 401k.
Correct.
The police,
The non-uniform may phase out, will phase out quicker than the police. But the police are obligated to be in a pension plan due to their contract.
yeah, our police here are unionized. So there's there's separate rules, as you might imagine, for unionized employees is what it comes down. And I don't see that changing. But if your question is at some point, when does all obligations stop? Well, in a sense, our financial obligations that Chuck just gave you, they've stopped because of the state contribution. Almost. And to the rate we're going, they will stop. Now, market conditions can change that, but we couldn't ask for a better result from a taxpayer financial point of view. Okay, we good? Any more questions? Thank you very much. We have to have a motion.
Yes.
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Next up, conditional use application for the Cedar Hill Development Group.
Good evening,
Good evening.
Ed Hughes.
Hi,
You
Ed.
can hear me through the mask. You usually hear me even without a mask, but. So I here represent the Cedar Hill Development Group LLC, owner of 1500, 1512, and 1524 Cedar Hill Road in the A1 residential district of Lower Gwinnett Township. They're seeking conditional use approval for a cluster development on the property with a 10% density bonus and a 10% lot dimension reduction based on the preservation of in excess of 20% of the property in open space, which is permitted by various sections of the township zoning code. In order to develop the property into 12 single-family detached dwellings on 3 cul-de-sacs exiting off of Cedar Hill Road. This is just the first step in the process of developing this property, the conditional use phase. If we get approval from the conditional use, we'll go into subdivision and land development, during which stormwater management, tree replacements, and other development issues will be reviewed and approved by the township if everything's in accordance with the township ordinance.
Excuse me, Mr. Hughes, I'm getting some indications from members in the audience if they can't hear you, so.
Try the mic. Maybe that'll work better for you.
Okay, so repeat myself. You guys okay, or should I start over? Okay, so I have a packet of exhibits. Ed, before you proceed, I have some township exhibits that we need to mark. So while you're doing that, I'll hand out my package. Fine. Exhibit T1 is the conditional use application, accompanied by 5 sheets of plans prepared by Woodrow and Associates dated July 17, 2020. Exhibit T2 is an email from Ed Hughes to myself dated August 13, 2021, amending the name of the applicant. Exhibit T3 is proof of posting.
Thank you.
Exhibit T4 is proof of publication. Exhibit T5 is a review letter from the Township Engineer Gilmore and Associates dated January 13, 2021. Exhibit T6 is a review letter from McMahon Associates, the Township's traffic consultant, dated January 12, 2021. Exhibit T7 are the minutes of the Lower Gwinnett Planning Commission for the meeting of January 20, 2021. And Exhibit T8 is an email I received this evening from a resident, David Furman, F-U-R-M-A-N, at 980 Redstone Lane. In addition, there are several residents that have requested party status. And for those not familiar with what that means, everyone will have an opportunity to comment on the application. Those with party status will have the opportunity to question witnesses, present evidence as they may choose, and appeal any decision of the board. I've already received requests for party status from David Smeltzer, S-M-E-L-T-Z-E-R, 910 Ridgeview Lane. Is Mr. Smeltzer here?
Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you. Eileen Warren at 1509 Cedar Hill Road. Is She here?
She is on Zoom. She is on.
Oh, okay, fine. Christian Warren, also at 1509 Cedar Hill Road. And Hal Jones at 1517 Cedar Hill Road. Does anyone else request party status? Please stand up, give your name and address, please.
And Ed Greer, 930 Ridgeview Lane.
Anyone else? Yes. Could you repeat that, please? And your address? Thank you.
What did you say? O'Connor.
Very good. Go ahead, Mr. Hughes.
Okay, so just briefly, I'll run through the exhibit package. A1 is the resume of my witness, Robert Jordan from Woodrow and Associates. A2 are deeds for the three properties, 1500, 1512, and 1524 Cedar Hill Road, which established ownership by the applicant. A3 is assessor's property records for those properties, which just confirm the addresses and location of the property and its ownership. A4 is a Google aerial view of the property. A5 is the cover sheet of the record plan set, sheet 1 of 24. A6 is a subdivision record plan, sheet 2 of 24. A7 is the existing features plan, sheet 3 of 24. A8 is the original landscape design plan A, sheet 17 of 24. A9 is the site landscape design plan B, sheet 18 of 24. And A10 is a rendered landscape and reforestation plan. So my first witness will be Robert Jordan from Woodrow and Associates. Well, we gotta get sworn in, I believe.
You say so you want to enter Robert Jordan, J-O-R-D-A-N? Swear the testimony you have to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Thank you.
State your name again, please.
Robert Jordan.
And what is your occupation?
I'm
And is exhibit A1 in the exhibit packet your CV resume?
Yes.
And what is your experience in civil engineering?
I have 34 years of civil engineering experience in dealing with land development and some.
And by whom are you now employed?
Woodrow.
And how long have you been employed by Woodrow?
26 years.
And have you testified in hearings, zoning and land use hearings in the past?
I have.
I've offered the witness as an expert in civil engineering and planning.
Do any of the parties have any questions regarding the qualifications of this witness? Recommend to the board that he be accepted as an expert in civil engineering.
Okay.
Yep.
And Mr.
So
Jordan, you were
accept-
retained by Cedar Hill Development Group LLC,
Yes.
and the ownership of the property is set forth on exhibit A2, the deeds to the property.
Yes.
That establishes the Cedar Hill Development Group LLC as the owner of the property. And they're the applicants for this conditional use approval. And did the Woodrow Group and you prepare a plan for development of the properties?
Yes, sir.
And these are three contiguous properties in common ownership on Cedar Hill Road.
Correct.
And there are 11.1808 developable acreage on the property.
Yes, sir.
And the property zoned A1 residential.
Correct.
And could you describe the neighborhood in which the property is located?
This property is located on Cedar Hill Road, surrounded by all A1 residential districts surrounding the property. It is located on Cedar Hill Road. Basically, the three lots in question will be removed. Topographically, the site falls from Cedar Hill Road back to the Ridgeview development. Various design points have been taken into consideration as part of this design aspect. The proposed development will consist of 12 lots taking access via 3 cul-de-sacs. Will provide 3.2 acres of open space connected with the
redstone development, open space by a 25-foot open space strip along Cedar Hill Road. This space will connect all the proposed open space areas that we have illustrated on the plan and your exhibits as shown.
And the property is currently improved by 3 single-family dwellings,
Correct.
and they're going to be removed.
Correct.
And the property is currently served by 3 curb cuts on Cedar Hill Road.
Yes.
And those, in the after condition, if approval is granted, there will still only be 3 curb cuts.
Correct.
And the A1 district permits cluster development of single-family detached dwellings with the density bonus and bulk lot dimension reduction for increased preservation of open space by conditional use.
Yes, it does.
And that's what we're seeking this evening.
Yes.
And the tract contains more than 10 acres of developable area.
Yes, it does.
And the tract is now in single and separate ownership by the applicant.
Yes.
And the tract is served by public water and public sewer.
Yes.
I'm sorry, but I'm finding it difficult to hear. If you could speak a little more distinctly.
The tract has more than 10 acres.
Yes, it does.
And the tract is in single and separate ownership.
Yes, it is.
The tract is served by public water and public sewer.
Yes.
And the tract has 11.1808 developable acres.
Correct.
And we're seeking a density bonus with regard to additional preserved open space.
Yes.
And we're seeking a 10% density bonus
Yes.
and a 10% reduction in the lot area, lot width, front, rear, and side yard setbacks
Yes.
as a result of that extra open space we're preserving.
Yes.
In order to achieve a 10% density bonus and bulk lot dimension reduction, we need to set aside 2.9527 acres for open space.
Yes.
And how many acres does our plan set aside?
3.205 acres.
And have you designed the 12 lots on the property?
Yes, we have.
And do all those lots as designed comply with the reduced lot area, lot width, front, rear, and side yard setbacks?
Yes.
And we propose to create a community association to own and maintain the open space.
Yes.
And that community association will be, consist of the owners of the 12 lots.
Yes.
And the open space will not be separately sold or further developed.
No, it will not.
And is the open space a continuous system of open space and interconnected open space on a budding property where possible?
Yes.
And does the open space have convenient access?
Yes, it does.
And the open space consists primarily of planted and maintained vegetation, walking trails, a wet pond, and benches.
Correct. Yes.
We're providing a walking trail across the project frontage.
Yes, we are.
And would we extend that walking trail to Welsh Road if we can obtain the necessary approvals from the intervening landowner?
Yes.
And we're proposing no additional curb cuts on Cedar Hill Road.
No.
In your opinion, will the proposed use adversely affect neighboring land use? And will it blend in with the surrounding neighborhood?
No adverse impact, and it will blend in with the existing community.
And does the proposal comply with all the conditional use criteria for a cluster development with a 10% density bonus and 10% lot dimension reduction?
Yes, it does.
Now, if conditional use approval is granted, what's the next step in the process of developing this property?
The next step would be working with township staff as well as a township engineer and McMahon on coming up with a viable plan that meets the requirements of the ordinance for stormwater and subdivision land development use.
So issues such as stormwater management, tree replacement, et cetera, would be addressed during the subdivision land development next step.
Correct. Yes.
Thank you. That's all my testimony.
Do any parties have any questions of this witness? Just questions? Anyone? Come on up.
Melinda Wolf, I didn't hear, you said open space has what kind of access? You said public?
Continuous access.
Continuous access, okay.
There's,
Greer, my name is Edward Greer. I thought I heard you say something about Wells Road, but I didn't quite understand what that was.
Well, the walking trail we propose will be across our property frontage. But we can't get to Welsh Road because there's another property in between where our property ends. So if we can get easements or rights to cross that property, we will extend the walking trail to Welsh Road.
There's questions from the board?
Yeah, I have a few of them. All right, so you mentioned the walking trail. Now, I realize there is another property there. So do you intend to negotiate with that property owner to try to come to terms about extending, getting an easement to extend the trail to the end of 63?
Yes, that is the intent of the plan. As we have it shown, it would require the township to help us secure the easement across the frontage of the property adjacent in order to get us to Welsh Road. But that would set us up for Welsh Road connection all the way through to the Redstone development.
Okay, so just so we understand here, so that would be at your expense to do that, right?
Yes.
Just want to make sure here.
Unless the property owner lets us do it. If he requires a sum of money, we have to work on that, but we can't be held hostage.
Yeah, I'm not saying you're obligated, you must do this. I just want to make sure that we can make that connection. We need to do that.
Right, and we would make the connection. with
And you would
our
make the
funds.
connection, that, right? So
Maybe, I'm not sure, maybe we can fit the connection in the existing legal right of way, I don't know. The exact.
well, that would be
connection.
something I would want you to look at if that's possible too, but talking to the homeowner is probably a good thing to do. And I want to make sure staff understands that you're gonna do that. And that's one of the conditions here, to try to get that connection. We're trying to do this all over the place, we're not picking on you, right? So we're trying to get this done throughout the township every time there's development and add those in. So that would be good. Trees. So how many are you taking down and how many are you planting?
Well, I could tell you that we met with the planning commission and that was a major concern in the planning commission. What we did is we went out and hired an arborist, brought an arborist in and took an inventory of all the trees present on site. And with that, we did a reforestation plan that is called up here now. As you can see, we've added a number of plantings along the adjacent properties to add some buffering. We've added some rain garden plantings, as well as a rain garden off to the right, BMP number 2. We're proposing to make that a wet pond with a trail system that would loop around the proposed pond. We need to do that for water quality purposes to meet our NPDES requirements. So the plan that we have shown with the reforestation is more or less virtually in compliance. We would need some relief with what we have shown, but we'd be looking.
So
for
do you know what relief you would need? I want to make sure staff, we're on the same page here with staff. So I want to make sure that any relief that you need is pretty clear and that the staff understands and agrees to that relief.
I think as we have it, it would be minimal relief, but I do think that we also have some re-engineering to do the plan, which might give us some additional area to plant some additional trees should we need. I don't have an exact number.
Okay. Do we know how many caliper trees you're removing versus how many you're putting back?
Can you pull that plan down a little bit? I think there's a legend down the bottom. It's hard to read.
So basically, based on the Rockwell Associates report, we have 75 trees in fair condition, 38 trees in poor condition. Total fair condition caliper inches is 1,288.5 to be replaced. Poor condition total inches is 803.5, exempted to risk of decline or dead based on the inventory. So compensatory, as far as replacement trees go, it would be 515 2.5 inch caliper trees, 429.5 3-inch caliper trees, or 322 trees at a 4-inch caliper.
All right,
Does
so
that
are we
satisfy?
saying that you're replacing caliper for caliper? Or are you asking for a waiver on the trees that you're taking down versus what you're planting?
Again, not knowing the full extent of the plan, I didn't prepare the plan, but I think we would be looking to, we're proposing 261 replacement trees as shown on the tabulation. But without re-engineering the site, I don't know how many more of those we could get on.
Okay, you need to find out, all right? Because the tree canopy is very important. The township is facing some regulatory requirements from EPA and DEP. And one of the biggest things, or one of the things they're hitting us with or want us to comply with is to fix or address issues in the Wissahickon Creek is our tree canopy. Trees slow down storm water. They're fantastic for the environment, and they're relatively inexpensive solution to flash flooding and so forth. They help. They don't stop it, but they help. So tree canopy is very important. And so I assume that you'll work with your engineering staff and our staff to make sure that our trees you have trees that are hopefully it'd be nice to have more replacements than you're taking out, but that's very, very important to do. So you're going to address that. My next question is contiguous open space. Now I understand that it's not all contiguous. Could you speak to that briefly?
It is linked by the 25-foot open space adjacent to Cedar Hill Road. That would provide a walking trail from the Redstone development to the left and would carry walking trail all the way down through Welsh Road. And it does have interconnection to each of the open space areas we have illustrated on the plan, along with some interconnecting loops in both open space areas. So
Yeah,
it is contiguous in the sense.
Yeah, so in other words, it's not contiguous, it's not all contiguous. So is there any thought as to how to make that more contiguous, or are we saying that that's not possible?
In reality, it's not possible, given the stormwater obligations that we have to meet on site. There are 5 points along the subdivision to the south, I'll call it, that collect points of, they're points of interest as part of our design. They collect stormwater that currently runs from Cedar Hill Road down through the site now. And with each of those areas, we have to control the rate of runoff. Our rain garden areas we have shown in open space area A is required to meet our obligation along with the stormwater basin on the open space area D.
Okay, so what I would like you to do is get with our engineer to make sure that we can't adjust, or we can adjust that, because you also mentioned my next topic was stormwater, right? So we have a number of residents that are at a lower elevation, they're below this development. Now, right now, stormwater is on everybody's mind because of what just happened, right? It's always been on our plate. Before this, I'm sure you know the stormwater issues Lower Gwinnett faces. So there's a requirement out there that when you build anything, right, you can't push the water that was on the building lots to your neighbor downstream. So, and I'm assuming that you know that. So is the amount of on-site disposal or retention of the water going to be sufficient so you don't send any of that water down the Wooded Pond or any of that? How can we be assured of that?
Well, we're going to work with township staff and the township engineer, but I can assure you that based on the requirements from our NPDES process, that the water going offsite will be significantly less than what's there today. Not only in terms of volume, but we would also address water quality as well.
Mm-hmm. And you probably can't answer this next question, but do you know how much water in the hurricane came off of your development sheets? And if so, where did it go?
Well, I went to those 5 or 6 collection points along the southern side. There are a series of swales and inlets that exist on the south side of the property. That's where the water from our site went today. I can assure you that in a post-development condition, it will be significantly less. We're looking to capture almost 80% of our site as we have it designed today, with only a portion of lot 8, 10, and 12 going off what we'll call unretained, and it's only the rear of those lots. We can also look at some additional measures to help with that situation, but I think in the long run, there'll be a significant improvement.
So you're going to retain more water on your, what I'm, just so I'm clear, right? So you're going to retain more water on the site than is currently being retained, even after the construction is done.
Correct.
Okay, so how would we know that?
Well, I'm going to work with your township engineer, and we're going to work through the numbers, and we'll make sure that everything that we talked about here tonight will be complied with.
So Jim, you got to make sure we don't flood our neighbors. So it's really important that we not do that, right? And because everybody right now, especially after the hurricane, right? But this has been an ongoing problem because in general, we're getting more water in general, and it's affecting the Wissahickon, it's affecting everything. And the goal of Folkways, for example, is to retain all of their water on their site if they can, if that's possible. So to make it better, I just happen to pick on Folkways because I happen to be thinking of them, but we want to do that to make sure our neighbors are as comfortable as they can be in understanding that we're, as a board, are watching out for their interests, and that you, as a developer, help us to help everybody else. It's very important that that happens. So, and I'm going to ask Jim, and I'm sure he would have done it anyway, but we want to make sure that that happens. And I have one more question for you. Now, we have a native ordinance, native plant ordinance. Are you aware of that?
Yes.
Okay, so there's been some questions about some developments not complying with the ordinance. So we have something called the EAC. It's a green committee, and we have experts on that committee who know flora and fauna and can tell you every plant that's native in the eastern United States, I'm sure. So they've been walking around some of these developments and have pointed out some issues. So I want to make sure you understand that you have to be very careful about native species being the plants or bushes or trees or whatever you're going to plant, and that's in compliance. So you comfortable? Do you have a planning schedule?
We do have a planning schedule. It will be submitted along with our land development plans. It will be signed and sealed by a landscape architect who prepared this rendering, this reforestation plan. So we will
Okay,
take care
and
of
of course, that would be reviewed by our township engineer as well.
Yes.
So, okay. I think that's enough from me, right? So is there another member of the board that has another question or any
I have
question?
a couple questions.
Please.
Just to clarify, you kind of touched on them, but I just want to make sure that I'm clear. The proposed ownership and maintenance of the open space and the stormwater management areas, is the HOA going to be responsible for maintaining those areas?
Yes.
And so have you discussed, I guess, any additional amenities that you're planning for the open space to kind of benefit our community?
Not at this time. I don't believe we've discussed anything other than the trails that we have shown and the plantings within the open space.
Also contemplating some possible benches, things like that.
Right, some benches, we'll have some features there, but
Passive like recreation.
Okay. So we kind of talked about the contiguousness of the open space. So Lower Gwinnett Township currently owns some of the properties to the southwest. Is there any way that you could reconfigure or maybe reduce the amount of homes to ensure that the open space abuts that western part of the plan?
you're saying the southwest, I'm looking for. which portion?
I don't have that diagram in front of me, but I can orient you to southwest.
We do have a sanitary sewer easement off to the bottom of the track that perhaps we could link those two somehow through a trail. I'm not sure that would encumber lot 2. Most certainly something I think we can take a look at with the developer.
So is there any, I guess, consideration to reduce the number of homes in order to ensure that that open space is contiguous and linked to that existing open space that's owned by the township?
No, we have not considered that.
Are you willing to consider that?
No.
You're not willing?
Well, we're in for the 12 lots. Which we're not totally a conditional use approval in our opinion, so we want to try to stick with that. Makes the whole project work better economically.
So the 12 homes makes the project work better?
Yes.
Okay. All right. That's all the questions I have.
Trustee or?
Yeah, I have some questions. So the information I was given to look at, which was from McMahon, there's a list of issues, and this document is from January, so maybe it's outdated, but can you address the issue about the right of way and the turning radius if on each of these cul-de-sacs? Is the are the dimensions of the roads and the leeways within the township ordinances? And can emergency vehicles get back there?
As far as the islands that we have shown in the center, they will be mountable curb planted islands that if in the event there is an emergency service need and they need to maneuver around the cul-de-sac, they would most certainly be able to maneuver using the mountable curb. That's essentially what we have shown as of right now. We would need a waiver for the cul-de-sac width.
Could you just repeat that? I couldn't hear the last thing you said. I'm sorry.
So we would need a waiver. I forget what the ordinance actually requires off the top of my head, but we would need a waiver for the cul-de-sac width.
For the width.
But there is sufficient area to maneuver. Like I said, mountable curb will be used for those islands. They'll be able to navigate over those areas if need arises.
Is Al Comley, he's our fire marshal, as you may know, right? Has he reviewed that?
He reviewed it initially, and I think one of the concerns was we have to provide him what we're planting in that island. So he does have some concerns that we will address as part of the land development process.
Okay, so you bring up the land development. Okay, all right. Tussie, do you have any more thoughts?
Yes, I'm assuming that there was a traffic study done and that that data met the requirements of the township for not increasing congestion in the area.
I don't believe we have done a traffic study for this development as of yet.
So another consideration which I have is the impact on local schools. If there are 2 children for every household, that's increasing the school load by at least 1 class. And right now we're bursting at the seams in the Wissahickon school system. Has there been any consideration given to that aspect?
Not at this time, no.
And then lastly, is it usual, I'm inexperienced in this area, is it usual to have open space be a catchment basin? Does that normally count as open space?
They are amenities as part of the way that we have them designed. The stormwater management BMP is a rain garden, which will have nice aesthetic plantings in it. We have a wet pond that we're proposing on the other side. So there will most certainly be amenities to any open space for public use.
Okay, no more questions at this time.
Thank you. Kathy?
Oh, fine, thank you. No questions.
I think we're good.
Anything further for this witness?
No.
You have any other witnesses? Do you wish to move for admission of your exhibits?
Yeah.
Very good. Time for public comment then.
The members of the LLC are here too, if anybody wants to ask any questions, they're in the audience.
My name is Robert Flanagan, 1601 Cedar Hole Road. I'd like to ask that those 6 whales be pointed out of drainage, water drainage.
We actually have an exhibit that our client's going to grab real fast. It helps better explain where the water comes from and goes to. That was used to meet with the owners originally when we discussed this at the land submission process for the conditional use.
State flag full name, sir?
Keith Floyd.
B-O-Y-D? You sound swear testimony about the case of the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes. Thank you.
Keith, you're a member of the LLC that owns the property. Yes. So I had put together early on, when we met with the residents a few months ago, a plan that shows basically the 5 watersheds. 4 or 5, right? And so the 5 watersheds consist of the different colored areas. So all the water currently on yellow sheds to this one point, all the orange to the next point, and so on and so forth. And I think most of the residents that came to the meeting saw this. So this isn't anything new for them, but what will happen once we're done engineering and going through the process and all the tree factors is we're basically wiping out all the gray that is now shown is all gone. So this is the only impact of storm water that leaves the site. So when he said earlier, 80% reduction, that's the 80% reduction that we're providing. That the gray is basically what we're taking away from you receiving. It goes into all of our stormwater controls.
Where does that go?
Well, it collects inside of the basins and then it eventually seeps into the ground. If it overflows, it'll overflow into connections to the existing stormwater management. But again, it's only 20% of the water you're getting now. So if you got 1 million gallons of water in the hurricane, you're going to get, 20 now. 200,000.
Mr. Hughes,
I'd like to know
do you want to
how,
mark those as exhibits? You wish them to be exhibits to the hearing, Mr. Hughes?
A11 is the existing condition. This is the watershed. A12 is the post-development. I think it's important to point out that, developers in general, it's a bad thing. So you're putting new houses in, it's bad. But we're required to basically rehabilitate the land. We have to rehabilitate it so that it has, right now you have no stormwater management controls. So whatever lands on that ground, right down the hill. It's not our fault. That's the way the rules were written back in whenever it was built in the 70s or 60s. But when you go through this exercise, the exercise with all the rules and regulations again, requires us to reduce much of the water that you're getting, amongst other things. So I just think it's important to say that, this isn't just, a subdivision, we're throwing in a bunch of houses and all the water's going to run down the hill. It's quite the opposite. It's really over-engineering the property for a better benefit for everybody. So, any other questions?
I have a question. Oh, go ahead. I'll wait. No, you go ahead. I had my chance, but I have another question.
We're on Ridgeview Lane, as you know.
Yep.
And when we moved in, our developer also said, we assure you, assurances, drainage, it's all taken care of. So I keep hearing assurances. What if it doesn't work, or what are the guarantees, or what can the township do to to back up the assurances or make sure the assurances are indeed met? Is there a legal aspect to it? You know what I'm saying, right? We moved in and it was like, you're not gonna have a problem. You got the drains all set up. So no problem.
Well, my answer would be, where is the problem coming from now? And what did they tell you, that they were gonna solve the problem for your site, or this water's coming from off-site? And that's where I feel like we're the savior for your development down there, because we're gonna take the issues you're having now, we're gonna make them issues better. And I don't see any two ways around it. What exists now is a terrible situation. What we're going to do to the property, or whoever would ever do anything to this property, is going to make it better than you're having now. There's no way around it. The way the rules and regulations are set up now, the DEP, Conservation District. I mean, we have to jump through more hoops than a 3-ring circus. And what they did back then wasn't nearly as sophisticated as what happens now. That's the best answer I can give you, I think. So,
David Smeltzer. So, with all the concrete, streets, the houses, right, the percentage of permeable space has changed significantly, right? But you're saying now that you're going to capture all that change and more, and take it away from our development.
So there's obviously existing impervious coverage there. So we're obviously adding new impervious coverage. So we're not only collecting our new stuff, but we're all the existing to reduce the entire, I don't know what you would call it, outflow of water by that 80%.
Okay, so where are you going to move to?
It's going to move. So the stormwater system in general is made up of, I think 40 various structures with pipe that all leads to rain garden and basin areas. And so.
So you're going to move to keep places on your property.
Yes. And then it infiltrates into the ground. Now, listen, nobody's going to stand up here and say that the storm we got the other day might not result in water. That's foolish. That was a ridiculous storm. I live in, Ivy Land, Pennsylvania, near Lambertville. I have projects in New Hope. They called that the worst flash flood in their history of Lambertville. It got the governor to come to the town. And we have projects up there. And I'll tell you, we have a project right now, 37 townhouses. And I didn't get one call from a resident about an issue with flooding. Because and I'll keep saying the word rehabilitate, because I think it's a fair word to use when you do these properties, you're taking all the stuff that's wrong with them and you're correcting it in a stormwater fashion.
Edward Brewer, I'd like to follow up on that. So I understand you're going to move this to much of the water to these running gardens. And then given the impermeability of the soil, and the fact that you're creating now a pond where there used to be dry land, how much of that is actually going to be a communal space that people can enjoy versus a swamp or a permanent pond that people will have to walk around? And how does the township value that land as far as open space goes? That's a question for, I think, both parties here.
Well, from an engineering perspective, I do think you touched on the permeability of the soil. The majority of the soil that we have tested is clay. So there's not a lot of infiltration to be had. So to account for that, we have to make our areas bigger. We have to amend the soils. We have to put bioplantings in our rain gardens to help absorb that moisture. We do have discharge points that are tied to inlets in your development, but that's, we have no sheet flow with the exception of the 3 lots I discussed earlier. All that water from the site is being captured, piped to our retention basins, which are going to reduce the rate of runoff considerably from what's there today. And I think what you guys are experiencing now is a sheet flow from Cedar Hill Road that comes down through the site and more or less runs across that clay and right to your storm sewer collection system. By cutting this watershed off and diverting it, we're helping to mitigate that area. So I think that's important to understand.
And the second question for the township is how is that now on land / swamp land valued as open space communal?
I can answer that question. The ordinance requires that the common open space be acceptable to the Board of Supervisors. So as part of the board's deliberation on this application, it will determine if the common open space is acceptable.
And the pond, just to state, will be sufficiently deep enough that you won't have growth, you won't have algae. It'll be a nice aesthetic feature, not just an algae collecting system.
If the other pond is a water pond, we've put fountains and we put aerators in our other ponds up in New Hope, and they actually even treat the water through the HOA. So the water always looks clean, the aerators keep anything from growing in there, and the fountain is actually a nice look.
A quick follow-up to that, being directed across from the water retention basin, mosquito control. Pond, and it's impermeable soil. I would have expected, and I'm shocked not to hear of some type of controlled water release from that retention basin. Not much is gonna go straight there.
Well, correct. And we do have controlled discharge through outlet structures that are designed for both facilities. But that discharge rate will be significantly less than you guys have today. The rain garden will be planted with bioplantings that will have amended soils 2 feet deep. So there'll be some storage within that area. And we're addressing it with DEP. There are DEP requirements that we have to meet water quality to your storm requirements, which we will meet.
But the large water retention basin, can we have some gallon estimate and the size of that?
As I mentioned earlier, we're going to be in the process of working through the land development aspect. We're have a better feel for it when we're working with the township engineer on designing the stormwater system.
Melinda?
Being a water pond, we have water pond also, which we finally named the first we did not water pond, stuff with retention. And it's just really horrible right now. So as you're thinking about, we'll take a look at that, make sure that's not what this is gonna turn out to be. We really appreciate that because
I think some of the failures of the old systems were not having any kind of under draining or draining systems to let them slow release so that the water doesn't sit. Because right now, that's probably a hard bottom. There's no escape for the water to get out, and the water will just sit there until it evaporates. The newer systems, like he had mentioned earlier, have amended soils, helps the water filter a little bit better. The piping gets connected, helps it move. So there's always some movement in the water.
another thing is, back to the concrete picture. I thought you were going to have off of Cedar Hill Road, we would have a little, like, instead of turning right away into the cul-de-sacs, the 3 cul-de-sacs, was there kind of like a turn? What am I talking about? Like the YMCA, you get a little bit to the right.
So there's a road widening, but it's not a deceleration lane.
Correct.
It's a widening of the road.
Okay.
Which will give more room for cars to slow.
To go in.
Plus, it actually is for us to be able to, we're curbing that whole thing, right?
No.
Okay, but we're putting
Swales.
in to catch the water that comes off Cedar Hill. So we're kind of solving, not only are we solving our additional house problems, or additional house impervious, we're also handling pretty much half the road of our house when the water comes off, we're going to our system.
And are the cul-de-sacs going to be one way, because they don't look very wide relative to the road that's going in?
They're double wide for car usage, so you'll come in, I would assume on the right,
Yeah.
you'll move around, and you'll probably stop.
So trash truck can go through there with parked cars in the cul-de-sac?
Well, I don't think they'll be parking in the cul-de-sacs.
No parking.
No parking in the cul-de-sacs.
Okay.
We'll have all three. Garage parking plus driveway.
So where the guests are.
Who enforces that? Who's that?
Police.
24, the drive width is 24 feet. With the actual driveways, they're 12 feet. A sufficient length. I mean, you can probably park 4 or 5 cars in the driveway, not counting what's in the garage.
There's a hand in the back, I think.
Yeah, Richard Cameron, I think a lot of your problems will be alleviated. We're trying to put somebody down. Thank you.
What is your address, Mr. Cameron?
What?
What is your address?
1137 McKean. Did you hear what I said?
You did. Thank you, Mr. Karen.
Here's one.
Famous. And we have another hand up in the back.
I'm very concerned about the entranceway on exhibit. Right now, Al lives next to me and also there's a building outside. So the three of us, our drivers are very close to each other. And now you're putting directly opposite us, another driveway for 4 more cars. And it's literally in front of our front driveway. Like school buses, there's 20, and on the road, every school bus stops at every home, but there's a sidewalk there. So it could take me 20 minutes to get out of my driveway in the morning, but school buses coming, or 8 cars coming out of there. I'm trying to go on the street.
Just trying to look which one. What parcel is yours again? 15.
And this is only conditional.
Would you be able to call up the record for me? Oh, okay. Well, there will be, we do have a sidewalk system, more or less a path proposed across the front.
The bus is trying to stop at every house because there's no sidewalk.
Well, perhaps we could,
That is my issue. Driveway for homes, off my road.
well, perhaps we could do a small bus area to help alleviate some of the concerns there, a small bus pad. And you have no traffic and you have no other traffic, so it's like not either. I understand. I drive that road every day to work.
Yeah,
I understand.
So point of clarification, is there going to be a sidewalk bordering the street?
Well, there is a cart, or I mean, not a cart path, but a walking trail across the frontage of the property. We could look at putting a community bus stop in somewhere off that trail that would serve the 12 lots in question. If that would help satisfy part of the concern with bus pickup.
So right now on that street, there's probably children going to 10 different schools. Because not just schools. So you have the 3
So
schools.
there's 10 different pickups just in those
Yes,
6
there are.
houses?
Yes.
Hmm.
there are.
So, I mean, to play devil's advocate, if the school bus is already stopping there 10 times, what's the difference if there's more than being run from each of their toll sites? The school bus is stopping already.
This isn't a debate. She asked a question, so if you want to answer it, you can answer it.
I'm trying to answer it.
Okay.
I think we can help solve that by putting in a community bus stop, maybe in the center open space area that would help serve the community. So it's a reasonable.
And there's no way that you can move it. There's no way that can be changed, the entrance and stuff. Can it come to the other side and maybe the other way? I mean, it's very hard to have one entry point. Opposite 3 other homes, 3 other driveways. I mean, it just seems very dangerous to me.
Well, you take a look at doing that because I understand what she's saying, right? And you said you do drive that road. And if you take a look at that, that would be helpful and come back and I'm sure our engineer there will help us too, because we don't want to, we want everybody to be safe, and we also want traffic to get through. So it's an issue. And you're going to address that. That's okay. So, all right, thank you.
Yeah.
There's somebody online who needs to be recognized here.
This is Deborah Schaefer. I want to go back to the storm water management. After this development is completed, who becomes responsible for the ponds and the other water collections? The rain, whatever that was. Is the HOA responsible for maintaining the aerators and the vegetation?
Yes, there will be a homeowners association established to maintain all the storm sewer facilities on site.
Okay, and what happens, the people who appear in the audience looks to me like they are neighbors and have a lot of questions about the stormwater management. Suppose that this HOA is negligent and does not continue to maintain the collection basins and the aerators and the vegetation
Normally,
that
the
you plan to put
documentation
in.
with regard to approval of a project requires the association to maintain those stormwater facilities. It gives the township the right, but not the obligation, to come in and fix things that are wrong if they want to, and then lien the property of the members of the homeowners association. So there's an enforcement mechanism built into the documentation that would allow the township to correct any problems and then back charge the association and its members. For the
So
costs
it
that
would
the
be
township
incumbent
incurs.
upon these people to make a complaint to the township and then have the township pursue it?
Well, there's probably some kind of inspection process, but usually a township responds to complaints. So if someone complains, the township will come out and do their investigation. If something's wrong with the system, it's not functioning properly, the township has a remedy to make sure that that gets corrected.
Mr. Hughes, I have a question along those lines. How will your home buyers, what form of disclosure will you make to your home buyers about their obligations to maintain the open space and the stormwater systems?
Well, it will be set forth in the community association documentation, plus separate addendums to the agreement of sale, which will set forth those responsibilities. And we can have that addendum reviewed and approved by the township solicitor to make sure it's comprehensive.
That would be great. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Jaworski.
Michael Tversky, 810 Springhouse Farm Lane. Speak up, I couldn't hear you. Michael Tversky, 810 Springhouse Farm Lane. I just had a question about the rain gardens and the basins. I thought I heard you say that they were sort of slow drains so that it won't affect too much runoff. Is there, how will you protect sort of against the traffic nuisance, little kids walking around there with standing water? Is there a plan to sort of fence it off some way so that it's not dangerous?
We do, we could look at putting a small fence around the pond that would prohibit anyone from getting into the pond. The township does have requirements to do that.
Because it seems like a legitimate concern if the water's going to drain slowly, as you guys said, to help fix the problem downstream.
Right.
And then you have this standing water for a period of time, and this woman testified that there's already a lot of kids in the neighborhood who go to school, and I would just be concerned about that. Thank you.
We will, I can assure you, we'll work with the township staff to make sure it's safe.
Okay, is there any more questions online? Any more questions from the audience? Please.
Yeah, thank you. I was just wondering, have you identified what the path of the runoff order would be after the pond is full?
Well, we do have an outlet collection system that will discharge to the collection system below in the adjoining subdivision. That will be hard piped. So we do have that path already established, and it's at a significant decrease than what's getting there today. And I think that's important to know.
So when the pond is full, it's not going to overflow, it's going to be piped through where?
Well, what we have is we have a pond area, normal water surface elevation, then we have storage volume above that. So the storage volume handles the inundation from the storm, and it's discharged through controlling devices, the outlet structure, that will discharge our water to the existing collection system, where there won't be standing water for more than 24 hours to 48 hours.
That was a little technical.
Yeah, that was a.
So what you're saying is, the word, you know, a normal everyday storm is going to be a little bit wrong. So the concrete structures that you'll see are being developed with the grade on. A lot of times there'll be one of those that's raised up to like the ocean level. Through that level and goes into that grade. It'll look odd because there's a grade that sits at a certain level at the structure. When it goes into that, it'll be hard to hook up underground to the existing system that's already in place.
And you determined that you could exist and handle it as and with on down.
Well, in that case, if you get to that inundation, I mean, we've already stopped 80% of it. If you get a little bit, you're getting 80% less than you would have gotten in that. So I think
as we've seen recently, pretty much every system that we ever designed has been overwhelmed at some point.
There are fail safes. We do have additional storage volume available, which we can take a look at, add a little bit more if necessary. But like I said, the discharge from those basins are significantly less than what's getting there today, and no more than the downstream pipes can handle. And we'll work with the township engineer to solidify that.
we would have to do the same 80% reduction. Whether it was 1 house, 10 houses. You still have to remove that amount of water that was created. So, you know, I understand there's a sort of the amount of houses, but it's still the reduction that will require to provide.
Melinda again.
Do you have a facility that you've already built or that's very similar to this where, because what you're talking about.
Yeah.
All I know is 900 ponds.
Yeah, I can happily bring you up to a site where we're right now. It has one smaller pond, one larger pond, with barriers set up, set up in it. I see it's under construction now, let's see how it operates. See the overflow situation and how it releases slowly.
I would recommend you stay whatever that property is.
It's called Rabbit Run Creek. It's located in Blue Brook, PA. I would ask if they're coming up and call me.
Oh, yeah. There's a people word.
Okay. I think we're all done.
I have one more comment, Mark. So, sorry, I don't want to belabor the water storm handling. I find it difficult, as other people in the audience, to believe that you know for a fact you can handle 80% of the water. I just think Mother Nature is going to play tricks on you in that regard. And my concern is that you haven't mapped out how big these ponds need to be, nor how deep, nor how many ponds. And you're going to do that once you start working with our engineer. So what happens if you cannot manage whatever this theoretical 80% is? I think you may have to, consider removing 1 or 2 houses from this development to accommodate that runoff. Because we all know that the number of very heavy storms is not decreasing. It seems to be increasing. So I'm dubious. I appreciate your years of experience, please, I do. It's just until we see some kind of a model, it's hand waving. We can't buy into this presumption of 80%.
Well, tonight's hearing is just for the conditional use aspect of the project. The next step is a subdivision land development process. If we can't satisfy the township and conservation district requirements, we won't be able to get approval and the project will fail. I'm pretty confident that we'll be able to meet those conditions, but that's the next step. approving something tonight doesn't approve any stormwater management system or any particular way to handle the stormwater. That comes next.
I appreciate that, but I think it's fair to express our concerns and let you know what's on our mind.
No, we appreciate it. Thank you.
So if it all goes and you start to build, is the right person to make a plan, if the water contamination, is that the right person that's going to develop?
Is there anybody who wants to speak in favor of the application? Either in person or virtually? Anyone who wants to speak in opposition? No, so we can close the hearing. Board will take this.
Two other exhibits.
Oh, you want to move the two other exhibits for admission? Fine. Board will close the hearing now and take this matter under advisement.
Thank you very much.
We're not going to have a vote tonight.
Yeah, you're going to have to come up. I'm not really sure I can hear you very well. It's dormitories. Could you come up to the microphone?
Yeah, I believe that, Thursday, Harold Fields. Yeah, I believe that,
The questions tonight are just too deep for traditional leaders.
Moved into these apartments, we had one fire, guys, got their truck stuff in the lawn. I'm just curious that, didn't use that property.
So you're saying the current buildings are occupied that are on that property? Well, I don't know that this is a subject of this hearing now.
Yeah, it's not appropriate for the conditional use application.
That
I'm
doesn't
sure
mean,
that's something Mr. Amy can look into.
yeah. We can look. Ken, can you take a note of that? And you'll.
Yeah, we're off the record.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. All right, next up. Next up, we have a resolution 2021-15, acceptance of a deed of dedication. Mr. Amy, could you fill us in on this?
Yeah, this relates to a prior subdivision application that was approved by the board some time ago. It relates to the rights of way on Evans Road and Gypsy Hill Road. So the deed of dedication as signed by the applicant dedicates the rights of way to the township. So what you have before you is the deed of dedication as well as a resolution accepting the deeds of dedication.
Okay. Any questions from the supervisors?
Yes. So Neil, I am not sure what the right of way is referring to. Is it the access to the houses?
No, it's the ultimate rights of way along Gypsy Hill Road and Evans Road. In other words, the public rights of way along those public streets. It doesn't have anything to do with the homes or the access to the homes.
Why is it that needs to be deeded to us?
For possible future expansion of the road, you would want to have those rights of way so you don't have to then go back to the homeowners or possibly acquire the rights of way by eminent domain.
Okay, I got it now. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions from members of the audience? Okay, I need a motion.
So moved.
Second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Next up is a deed of dedication. Well,
This is the
this is
the
the,
deed. The first was the resolution.
yeah, the first was the resolution. So we're accepting, all right, so we had the deed of dedication. So we need a vote on the resolution. Craig, do we need a vote on both?
Sure, why don't we make a motion to accept the resolution?
Okay, so I need a motion to accept the deed of dedication. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Next up, Welch Road Trail.
So we put the Wells Road Trail back out to bid. It is the trail that would make the connection between the bridge that we installed earlier this year and run about 800 feet of Wells Road. We're hoping that we would get some better numbers than we did last time. We revised the trail from concrete prior to asphalt now, before we get better prices. Unfortunately, the lowest bid was $110,000, and that's great to keep his opinion on that, but this is a little higher than I.
Best recommendation is to reject all the bids and about this again, or maybe just eliminate the whole trail on Welch.
And when you say eliminate the trail, what you're saying is that right now, people are walking on other, in the rights of way, people were walking on the grass.
Correct, the walk over the grass and trying to
Four houses.
homeowners, homes. Although we have the easements for that. We believe that the homeowners there would rather have the natural trail in front of their house instead of a paved trail in front of their house. So with this number, we're looking to maybe, either come up with a different plan or well, at this time, reject it for the $110,701,000.
It seems like a lot of money to me for 800 feet.
As it does to us too.
Yeah, all
Mr.
right.
Chairman,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion that we take the recommendation of the staff, reject these bids, come back to us with a better plan, a more economical plan. That's a form of a motion.
Sure. Can I have a second to that?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Next up, Montgomery County Recycling Commission. We have a resolution. Could you fill us in, Craig?
I'm going to give this to Jamie. She was handling with the Northern Montgomery County Recycling Commission.
Last fall, we had this before you, and it is just a resolution that modifies some of the Act 101 violations that are already part of our ordinance. This is just updating it. The board had concerns about, they wanted to make sure that the decision to pursue any type of reports of a violation would still remain with the municipality. That has been addressed in the new language of this resolution. So it's before you again for a vote tonight to adopt the resolution through the Northern Montgomery Recycling Commission.
So they addressed all of our issues that
They did.
we had.
Mhm.
Good. All right. Are you happy with it, Jamie?
Yes.
Yes, you are. All right. That's a good recommendation. Is there any members of the board have got any questions about the commission this is an extensive document, as you may.
I'm sure. Having been on that commission for 25 years and the past president and vice, a recommendation coming from them and the good legal counsel that we have there, I would like to make a motion that we accept this resolution recommendation from the Northern Montgomery County Recycling Commission.
I actually had questions though.
Okay, I
Mr.
didn't know
Bennett.
that. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to ensure that the recommendations include not the responsibility. Do we have the responsibility to investigate violations?
No.
We don't. Okay, that is clear. And then the other recommendation, and I can't get the document to open. So I just wanted to make sure that it doesn't pit one neighbor against the other as far as needing to report. Okay, that was the clarification I saw. Thank you.
Okay. Or any questions from the members of the board here? Okay. Any questions from the audience? Okay, we have a second. Excuse me, you have a motion. We need a second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Resolution passes. Thank you very much. Next up are citizens' comments, concerns, or questions you may have for things that were not on tonight's agenda. Are there any questions either online or from the audience?
James, anything online?
I'm sorry. You get cut.
So,
Kathy?
how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. I just wanted to be sure, I know it's just a small group there, but anyone viewing this even later, to be sure to invite all of our residents to our Fall Fest on Sunday, September the 26th from 12 to 4 p.m. We'll have food trucks, some music, and fun events for the kids with information tables about our community. So I just wanted to be sure that we got that out there tonight. So thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Okay. All right, we're closed for comments. Next up is the request by residents, William Murray, to discuss the Brookside Avenue flooding. Mr. Murray, could you come up? And could you give us your address, please?
My name is William Murray. I live at 413 Brookside Avenue. Presentation.
Okay.
PowerPoint 2, No, PowerPoint.
I can't.
I don't think he heard you.
We didn't give it. Not enough. No. We do have the video.
Well, Mr. Murray, she's indicating she can't open your presentation. Do you have it any other way?
No, because it's on the flash drive.
Right, but the flash drive, the format that you have it in isn't something that I can open on this computer. I don't know what presentation was made in, but it's not compatible.
Well, would you like, we can do a couple of things here. We can add you to the next meeting, which is in 2 more weeks. Or you could speak to it now, or perhaps both. It's up to you.
This flash drive to work to show everybody here and also the people who are virtually
Right.
having this meeting to see what they're talking about.
Okay, so we're going to have to reschedule this then.
If I bring this flash drive into this meeting, how is that going to?
Well, you're going to have to bring, if that one won't open.
I'm showing the video. This is my video.
Okay. So
Also
now
on
it's
Brookside
showing.
Avenue, but I mean, it kind of captures, I think, what Mr. Murray's probably going to talk about. But I think he has probably more detail. But this is what Brookside Avenue looked like on September 1st.
Which way is it running?
It's running downstream and it's coming from the bridge that's over the creek. So it's running downstream from the Night Road down to Spring Garden.
Yeah, it's running towards Ambler Yards.
Yes.
Petition signed by 18 residents. Move off the bridge that's causing the flooding on Brookside Avenue. Also, that the township's response to our request to improve the structure to prevent the flood from Brookside Avenue. The video would show better details on We live downside from the school district. There's the Wissahickon High School, there's the middle school, there's the elementary school, and there's the school board district. We're on the low end of all that runoff that's coming down to all those areas. There's a dam that's been built up there, but that's been built over 30 years ago. Evidently, this video is showing it's not adequate. Hopefully, Lower Gwinnett Township, Lower Gwinnett Elementary, and the school district building doesn't even go into the dam. It runs after the dam. And we have running on the culvert that runs under Night Road. That gets jammed up with debris. Overflows, the road is closed, traffic is stopped. So part of it goes down Houston Creek, the other part goes down Forsyth Avenue. Here and see the flooding on our street there. We're all, I'm to the point where I say to myself, do I have to put sandbags on the front door? We can't go anywhere at this point because the street's flooded, our car would get spilled out or what have you. So we just have to hope and pray that our floods don't get destroyed. We've been in touch with Andrew Yards 2 years ago. They offered to the school board that they had 2 engineering firms on that site there. They went to the school board and they said, listen, we have a mutual problem here. Let's do something about it. The school board rejected it. Specifically about this neighbor, 446 Maryland Avenue. He lives up here on the hill. And he doesn't have a driveway on the front. He doesn't have a driveway for access to where he lives there. So his property goes over to Forsyth Avenue over the creek. He built a bridge over the Houston Creek. And for the last 20 years, when Ed Brandt was, he's the only one here that's was here when we went before the board to say that we have a problem here, that something has to be done. That was in 2004. It's on my video. I'll have it in hard copy. These are pictures and
Thank you.
The board can look at. But we went before the board in 2004. Jeff Hart, who talked about he's no longer with us, but he wrote to the board saying this couple that this private owner build does not work. It's closing the budget after Brookside Avenue. And it's getting out for the previous show. The township sends a tractor and a truck there to remove the debris from that bridge. Why are we spending taxpayers' money to support a private residence? Come to my property. The guy with property at 431 Brookside Avenue runs down like this. And we get the end result of that flooding from Brookside Avenue. It comes along the side of my property, goes into my backyard, and then washes into the back into Houston Creek. But like I said, Bill Gebhardt in 2004 wrote a letter to the board requesting relief, and nothing was ever done. I sent a letter to the board. That's when they proposed those 2 buildings down by the creek, Spring Garden Street. And, I know Bessie's not going to like this, but they removed trees there because they needed to remove the trees to build this particular house. To get back to Amber Yards, I met with Matt Siegel, and we both have a mutual problem that needs to be addressed. We're getting all this runoff from the school district. They say it's not their problem. Something needs to be done. Why should we put our list of lives at risk? Lose Amber yards because they're concerned about, they have the residue of the flood September 1st in their parking lot. You know, you have the risk of lives, property, taxes, jobs, and wages that are in jeopardy because nothing's being done. Like I said, the dam up there on school district property is inadequate. The culvert down on that road is not adequate. The bridge on 446 Marion Avenue has to be removed. The ordinance says, I don't have the exact thing, I've seen the printout that no driveway should obstruct the stream or creek, which for the past, I've been there 37 years. Flooding has not really been an issue for the last 20 years, to be honest. You know, that needs to be removed and let's see what else. Okay, you know, it's like I said, we all live in this watershed. We all have a shared responsibility. With that bridge over 46 Marion, number 2, the residents have a responsibility to put rainfall in their homes, to plant trees. Other yards, you know, cooperate with us, with the school district, the township to solve this problem. Let's get together. State funds, Department of PA, Department of Environmental Protection Revenue, federal infrastructure revenue. Let's apply for those grants so that we can address this problem.
I'm sorry, could you speak into the microphone? I'm getting a lot of people in the chat that are saying that they can't hear you.
Said that he would be able to show the presentation. He has the format. Like if you share the screen with him, I think his hand is raised.
Okay, great. Matt, could you help us out here, please?
I don't know if that's possible to get the ability to do that, but I think that's what he said in the chat, Jamie, I'm sorry.
Are there any storm drains on the Brookside Avenue at all?
Yes,
There are.
yes,
They're just inadequate.
correct.
Yeah, it's similar to my street, which doesn't have storm drains at all.
I did enable the screen share for participants, so Matt should be able to share his screen.
Are people able to see that?
Yeah.
I guess, Bill, tell me when you want me to stop
Thank you.
or forward.
Now you got to keep going forward now. Then I go up to 1. We'll start from the beginning.
Okay.
Okay, you know, evidently, I think we get the gist of what we're talking about. There's what we're, 2 weeks ago, but it's a yearly thing now with the flooding. It's not just something that happens once every 100 years or so. This is the petition. I don't know if it's been passed around or not, but signed by 18 residents. Okay, thank you. There it is there. Okay, go ahead. Go.
Okay, like I said, Houston Creek runs basically from Bethel Road to the Wissett Creek. And the school district sits up above us, and we're the end result of all that, the parking lots, the impervious surfaces from the school buildings. You can see that the high school was built in 61. You know, I don't think it was an issue. 74 with the middle school, not an issue. But I think ever since the elementary was built, it's created a problem that needs addressing. That's the high school, the parking lot, middle school, and the elementary school. Now, this is the drain pipe that I'm talking about that runs after the dam that the school district put up. It drains into Houston Creek. There's a school district building. They have a drain pipe that runs into the creek, to Houston Creek also. This is the dam that the district put up over 30 years ago. It's not working. There's a culvert that Night Road that becomes clogged when the roads are closed when it's a heavy storm. This is the bridge at the illegal driveway according to the township ordinance that the neighbor built, and for his convenience, not for ours certainly. There's the ordinance 1044.01 about draining, but no person shall construct or basically keep the more than 12 drainage water. And I went to the Board of Assessments of Appeals and to see if there was a permit, and it says that without property 446. This is the letter that was spoken by the Gephards back in 2004. He said that I think the board of supervisors should take the necessary steps to have the enforcement for a bridge removed. The 7 Brookside Avenue residents of 3 Spring Garden residents should not have to be frequently inconvenienced with flood waters for the convenience of navigate the resident who wishes to park a vehicle in the backyard. He still has to look to park a vehicle in the backyard. But a footbridge if you want to access over the bridge. This is showing there exactly what we're talking about. And yeah, and he sits on the hill and comes down. This is my property, and on top of it will be 413 Brookside. You can see the debris from September 1st on the Geyser property. That's my property on there in my backyard. You can see the erosion from the September 1st storm. Okay, Matt. And this is what it looks like, the end result. All that water going down. I sent a letter back in 2004 to the board to address this issue, and nothing's done. This is like I said, we have all these companies, businesses, and we are. We were experiencing flooding in their parking lot. God forbid if we lose our neighborhood, if we, you know, and the result is we lose jobs and wages and taxes. We are offered to, they walked up the creek with an engineer from their job site to you know, say, well, this can be done, that can be done. See the cracked bridge, and over there by the cement wall in the background, you can see some residual debris from the storm. This is some sort of steps that we feel could be taken. The first one should be taken immediately. You know, like the vote and listen to all the people who are not represented. The only thing, the one that I very, like, have more detail, but this is sufficient. I think that's sufficient. So,
It'd be helpful if we could get a format that works, or Mr. Siegel, maybe you can, Matt, you can forward us a copy of that. That would be helpful too.
Yeah, I think the format was created in Mac, which is what I run. So if I can save this into PowerPoint, I will forward it on to Craig and Jamie.
Thank you. All right, well, let me tell you what I know, right? A lot of what you just said, I agreed with. So let me tell you what we've already done, because it was unrelated to the storm. We've been in negotiations for some time with the school district, because the school district, apparently the school district isn't in the dam business, right? So we know that. I understand. So as part of the effort to help with the Wissahickon Creek, the town, there's 13 townships of 4 wastewater treatment plants up and down the creek, from the start of Montgomery Mall all the way down to Philadelphia. And 5 years ago, we all got together to decide we've got to do something about the health of the creek. EPA and DEP were coming for us, and they gave us an opportunity to come up with what's called a alternate TMDL, and we've been working on that for 5 years. We're close, I hope, to the EPA and DEP suggesting or approving what it is they want to, that they think we ought to do as municipalities in order to assist with the creek. It's with cleanup. A big problem with the creek is, you guessed it, flash flooding. So part of the problem with the creek is that they have these metrics. One of them is a macroinvertebrate scale, and that's basically mayflies. So they look at a creek and to determine the health of the creek by looking at what's called the critter scores. It's mayflies and whatever else lives in there. And they do an analysis. They look at it over years, and they come back and they say, you got a problem? Your stream isn't healthy. Well, they said our stream isn't healthy. They said that several years ago, and that's why we all got together. I am the co-chairman of that group. So there's a lot of people involved. So one of the projects that we looked at in order to remediate the flash flooding in Lower Gwinnett, because every township is going to have projects, and we're going to collectively do this, right? And one of them was the dam. It had nothing to do with the storm, but that dam has been causing problems for quite a while. I was aware of that, and if we're gonna help with any of the flash flooding to reduce it so it doesn't scour the Wissahickon, we got to reduce the outflow during a storm event. Well, in a hurricane, I don't know that how much we can really alleviate because there's so much water, but we went out, we got permission for this township, for the school board. We got their agreement to allow us to help them. That's the Lower Gwinnett Township. And so in May, we went out for grants to help with that dam and its associated waterways. It has, again, nothing to do with your problem we had today, but I think, Jim, that request for assistance went out in May, is that right?
Financing, and hope to hear back by the end of the year whether or not we receive the funding. The funding will fund this study to determine whether or not upgrades to the dam could have a measurable effect on the specifically your study. Excuse me. Who was doing the study? The township engineer will do the study.
So we're trying to figure out what we can do to help with that, because the dam is not doing its job. Right. Well, what I'm telling you is we're taking it upon ourselves, regardless of what happened to the tornado and hurricane that came through, to fix this. And this just happened to be advantageous in one respect, because now you can really see it. It's a 500-year event. And so you can really see it. So we know you have a problem. I've already asked the engineer to go out now, and I think this coming week, he's gonna go and we're gonna survey that whole area. When I say survey, it's gonna take a look and see what we can do in the short term and the long term, and see if we can get enough funds from the state to work on the dam and try to fix this problem. Because yes, the bridge is causing a problem, but you know what? The bridge is causing a problem because we're not holding the water and metering it out. So when it rains, we have a storm event, it all comes at you at once. So the idea would be to slow it down. And yes, the bridge is an issue. We're looking at that. I had our counselor here take a look at that, our township solicitor, for the reasons you just described, because of that bridge. So we're all looking at it, and we've been looking at it. And again, the school board, it's really their problem. There's a jurisdiction issue here because it's not something we own, Lower Gwinnett Township. And the waterways are regulated by the state of Pennsylvania. That's in their right of way. We can't, if you've got if that stream that runs through there needs to be dug out or something, we can't do it. We have to go to the state of Pennsylvania and say, we have a problem, will you let us do it? Because they have jurisdiction. So we're kind of like, the honest.
And have you done that, sir?
We
Have you asked for them to do that? This is Tammy Hughes. I've had my hand up for about 10 minutes.
Well, I'm sorry, Tammy, I didn't see it online, but we've gone to the state to ask for resources so we can do it.
So they're willing to give jurisdiction for you to do it.
Oh, no, they're willing to listen to us to do an engineering study so we can tell them what we think needs to be done.
Understood. If I could just chime into what Bill has said. This is Tammy and Evan Hughes. We live at 430 Brookside. You allowed this house to be built 7 years ago. And so I would imagine this would have been looked at before then. But what I can tell you is that when it rains, and take this storm out of the equation, when it rains, we have water coming down both sides of our house from Francis Avenue. We have water that comes from the Marion side. We have water that comes down the hill from the school. So we are getting water from all sides. And everyone on this street, I would argue, probably has a sump pump, but our electric has been out 9 times this year. And the sump pumps aren't very effective when you don't have electricity either. So I have to say that between the utilities that we have here, water included, because that goes out frequently too, I feel like you're failing us. And I think something really needs to be done. And I fully appreciate and support what Bill has done here. But I think that this council needs to take a hard look at why this street has third world utilities and why it is that we can't get water off of our property.
Well, I can appreciate what you said, but, right? So here's the but. One of the problem, all the water is connected. So we have storm water, we have drinking water, and we have sanitary sewers. We don't have it. We have no jurisdiction over the drinking water, although we're working with Ambler and we have conditionally given them $250,000 in the 2022 budget. Is that correct, Mr. McNally? For Ambler drinking water? We already did write them a check to help with the drinking water. It's not our utility. We don't own it. We don't have jurisdiction over it. And it's a PUC regulated utility, not Lower Gwinnett. But we're trying to help them with it because the infrastructure down there is awful. Those pipes were put in 100 years ago. They're terracotta pipes. And we've approached Ambler and said, Ambler Water Company, you need to address this. And their answer has been, well, we don't have the resources. It's not a Lower Gwinnett issue, but we have met with our legislative aides, Senator Collette. She was just here early. We've met with her. Todd Stevens, we've met with him because we need to do something here because it's so old. They didn't invest is really what happened over the years. Now, Your sanitary sewer system, that's a different story. We own that. And that's in very good shape. So the big problem right now, as we saw from the storm, is the storm runoff. And again, the school board owns the issue because it's coming off of their property, but they haven't done anything, so we're doing it. We're trying to do what we can, and that bridge has got a problem. I'm sorry, say again?
Why can't you force the school district to own up to their responsibility?
They have their own elected board. We don't have jurisdiction over the school board. The school board is elected by the residents of the 3 municipalities that have students going into them.
But
And-
sir, you represent us, right? And so we have elected you to represent us with those groups and to come to an agreement that will work for all of us. The current agreement works for no one. So I guess what I've heard so far today is nothing is your fault and nothing is your responsibility. And I appreciate that you're looking at it. And I appreciate that you see that there's a problem, but I'm hearing a lack of definitive actions that will help anything here.
The only thing we can do right now is try to get resources so we can address it. And ask other utilities if they can address it too, because they're not.
Mr. Chairman, can I speak?
Sure,
I
please
just
go
want to
ahead.
say, Ms. Hughes and Mr. Murray, thank you so much for bringing the problems to the entire board and to the rest of our community, because as you know, I lived through them with you. I think that rather than kind of deflect the responsibility, I can say that at least on my behalf, I'm assuming the responsibility and going to ensure that we follow up. I brought to the board's attention and to the subcommittee that I serve on as it relates to building and zoning, the concerns around the flooding, I think last spring, which kind of prompted us to kind of reach out to the school district and have a conversation around ownership, if we could explore the possibility for grants and to move forward in that manner. You know, we're hopefully going to find a decision or learn about a decision at the end of this year related to if there will be funding in that as it relates to that grant, but I don't think that we're going to stop with just that grant. This is something that I think is affecting the lives of a significant portion of our community, my family being one of them. And we will work within our budget and within the constraints of our budget to address this issue as it relates to mitigating that grant with the school district and with the township. In addition to that, I think as Mr. Grace said, he's already had a conversation, as well as I've had a conversation with our solicitor as far as perusing the ordinances and statutes that relate to the private bridge that the individual on Marion has erected above and over the stream. I think the videos and the filming is an extreme example of the flooding, but as you and the rest of our residents know, this happens 3 or 4 times a year, and it has been going on for many years. That's just the flooding and the stormwater. I think as it relates to our utilities, we have to take each one as separately, but as it relates to the water and our water being shut off, me and Mr. Gray, I think, did speak at Amber Borough's meeting last year and kind of expressed our concern with the fact that these pipes that are 100 years old have not been maintained, that the infrastructure is old and it clearly is failing us at this point. And, you know, there were some explanations as to why it may occur, none of which really is acceptable. So what we've kind of hoped we would do, and as moving forward, I know that I will do on this board, is working with Ambler Borough as far as getting grant money or finding out exactly how we can assist them in repairing it. They did get grant money to do some repairs in Marion and Norma a few years ago, but the entire thing needs to be taken care of. And we have to come up with a solution as to addressing that. Now, as it relates to Pico and the power, I have no control over Pico and the power. But I think those 2 things that are within the realm of our control, I know that as long as I'm on this board, it's not going to be something that we ignore and leave up to hope. I will continue to press it because, as you know, we're living what seems like in a twilight zone where we only can have 2 to 3 utilities working functionally in the summer months at a time. So I hear and I appreciate the fact that you guys have come forward and expressed it beyond the expression of concern that I've shared. Just know that as I'm here, it's not going to be something that's going to be ignored.
I just don't want to wait another 17 years.
Oh, we're not going to.
I'm not going to be here, cold and marching around here. But it's got to be addressed immediately.
Absolutely. It's a health and safety risk at this point, sir. So as long as I know, it's a health and safety risk. We're captive in our homes. Nobody can get out. Nobody could get to us. And with the tornado warning, when you're supposed to go to your basement and you have 3 feet of water in your basement, we were just at the will of Mother Nature. So I understand completely, I understand completely what's happening, and it's not something that's acceptable for anybody who's paying all of their money and all their taxes to be suffering in like a third world scenario regularly each summer.
When will we find out about the bridge?
So we've given it to our solicitor, I think, when Mr. Stein gets back to us as far as what ordinances.
Well, I can say right now, I agree totally with you that there is an ordinance violation. There is an ordinance that specifically says you can't impede the free flow of water. Even if there wasn't an ordinance, that's been law in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania since William Penn was here. So as a consequence, we have a procedure to deal with ordinance violations. And if the board wants us to, we'll initiate that procedure immediately.
Do you need a motion?
I don't need a motion, I just need direction.
Enforce it.
So I would like you to enforce it.
I think we can all agree with that. I'm sorry to hear that this problem with the bridge, at least, has been going on so long that it hasn't been addressed. So I hope we can move expeditiously to correct that.
Thank you, Mr.
And
Martin.
just to make this a little bit more formal, I'd like a motion and I'd like a second.
I'd like to make a motion to, direct our solicitor Neil Stein to move forward with the enforcement of the zoning ordinance.
I have a second.
I second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martin.
There's the question back there. Yes, sir. Could you state your name, please, and your address?
My name is Ray Salvo. I'm at 416 Brookside Avenue. The only thing I want to add to this whole thing is that every time it rains, the issue of flooding is because the storm drains aren't cleaned and the culverts aren't clean. Now, we walk our dogs all the time and we look at the bridge that goes over Knight Road. And there's always trees there. And I've actually called the township to say, hey, when are you going to come clean it out? So I think that the Public Works Department needs to check those areas more often. And that way it'll at least slow down the flooding, because it floods when it rains, not when there's a hurricane, when it rains. And I have pictures on a regular heavy rain when they say serious thunderstorm. So that's my 2 cents. If we could just have someone clean out the culvert, I think we'd solve some of our problems.
And could I have the township manager talk to our road director and have him take a look at that? Oh, hi. I didn't recognize you with your mask on. Hi, Fred. So you'll put that on your list as a routine? Okay, all right. Thank you. William?
I have pictures of the township at the day after that was first storm, cleaning a backhoe there with a truck there, cleaning the drain out. That's a Band-Aid solution. That bridge needs to be removed. Yes, space there, you want to park his vehicles on the other side of the creek towards Brookside Avenue, and you can build a footbridge. He wants access to that creek. It's inadequate any way you look at it. If you constantly cleaning it out, so, hey, there's a problem there. The two tall roads there are not
I think what's most important, I think, to emphasize is that the Hurricane Ida was an extreme example, but kind of to what Ray has indicated, we get flooding when it just rains. Our backyards, our front yards, and our side yards. So I mean, I have, I think, over 15 videos from just the last year of every time my backyard became completely encased in water, as well as my side yards, just for insurance purposes. Or I have 2 sump pumps, a swell, and a French drain, and I still get water every time in my basement. So it's an issue that goes beyond probably the bridge and beyond cleaning out a culvert, but at least these are active steps to remediate it, and we're going to continue to figure out what the cause and issue is.
Okay.
We have a hand raised from Matt Siebel.
Yes, Matt.
I think one issue that needs to be raised as well is that people in the neighborhood are stacking their debris, landscape debris, by the creek. And then the first flood that comes along, it takes the debris away, which I guess for that homeowner is great because it's an easy way to get rid of it. But it ends up down on my property, Ambler Yards, and I probably spend, upwards of $10,000 a year just cleaning out debris from the culvert by the railroad crossing, and not to mention what the debris that builds up on the PennDOT bridge. I mean, my maintenance guys are on a first name basis with half the people at PennDOT to try to constantly get them to come and clean out that bridge. So, I really ask that all the residents, up from there, stop putting all of that debris right where the creek is just going to wash it away, because you're just making matters worse. I promise you're making matters worse.
Thank you, Matt. Are there any more questions? Okay.
Yeah, just can I just, this is Tammy Hughes, if I could just make one more comment in response to Matt. I mean, Matt, we're not on the creek side of the road, but I would argue that if you know who that is, it doesn't have to be done publicly, but I think you should make, the proper people aware of that, because, I agree with you that they absolutely shouldn't be doing that, but I think it's sort of unfair to call out the entire community of Brookside Avenue when it's probably a couple of people that maybe don't know it's a problem and maybe aren't on this call,
Okay, Tammy, thank you.
And I do appreciate everyone listening. Thank you.
Okay, are there any more questions on any issues not already scheduled tonight? No, okay. Managers report, do you have anything to report?
I have nothing.
That's enough, okay. Supervisors' comments, Mr. Brandt, you have any thoughts?
A lot of thoughts tonight. I mean, with the first, starting with the conditional use hearing, the staff has to review that plan completely. There's a lot of residents here that brought many issues to the table. Of course, I want to thank Mr. Murray for coming here, for giving a presentation, and the help from the neighbors, and of course my fellow supervisor, added to that, and because she lives there, and I'm glad that we reinforced that our solicitor has to follow up with this. The other thing I want to make sure that people realize that our chairman mentioned he's been working with other municipalities on issues of stormwater and what the state and the federal government has asked us to do and told us to do. I just hope everybody that's listening, the people here, I'm really fed up with the federal government and with the state, because they love to tell us what to do and they don't give us any money to do what they're telling us what to do. And they're saying a lot of things come down the way to the Wissahickon and into our township. It's a state county problem. It's a federal problem. And I know Mark has been working hard with his committee, but I just want to make sure the residents realize that we have a lot of mandates thrown to us, but not a lot of money. So tonight brought a lot of dedicated residents, and because of the problem on Brookside and what's going to happen with the new development. And we did hear from those people that brought the new development to us, the regulations that they're under, which we in some areas of the township, we wish the developments that we live in and where we live we're regulated a lot better to handle all these problems. So I think it was a very, very good meeting tonight from hearing from the residents and their concern. I think our staff has a lot to work on, and the supervisors to continue. And Danielle, without a doubt, has firsthand information. I was asking her before the meeting how she made out, and when she showed me the pictures and told me what, and then I hear tonight the amount of time that the electricity's out, you know, and you have a sump pump. Well, what's having a sump pump if you have no electricity? But there's a lot of problems besides just water for Brookside, and the utilities are major. So I thank the residents for really opening their hearts and telling us exactly how they feel and what the problems are. And this board and future boards have to continue to address this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brandt. Kath?
Yeah, I'll just comment on the last item on our agenda and thank Mr. Murray and all the residents for bringing this to our attention. I had no idea that the situation is as dire as it is and as chronic as it is. And I see no reason why in the short term we can't do the Band-Aid fixes, which should be done before we can address it as a full picture, you know, the driveway, the cleaning out of the projects and the maintenance of it. But I do think that it's a larger project and we're waiting for this grant funding to come in so we can really look at the whole big picture and get one final solution to it and really put the problem to rest, hopefully. And I also think we should still pursue a partnership with the school district. And we have the developer, and we have a very competent engineering firm down there on that campus that, you know, put together some kind of private public partnership to solve this issue once and for all. And I think you have my assurance, and I think my fellow supervisors would agree with me that it's not going to be another 17 years. And you've got a true leader here with Supervisor Duckett. I think this is something that we definitely need to pay more attention to, and we'll take care of it. Thanks again for coming out and bringing it to our attention.
Thank you.
Mark, there's one more thing I forgot to mention. Those that are listening and those that are here, I want to thank Kathy Morris and Kathy Hunsinger for working very hard, especially Kathy Morris, on trying to put together Sunday the 26th for the community to come together from 12 to 4 at Wissahickon High School. So I want to thank them and make sure that those that are listening, those that are here, try to make it over there, and so we can be together as a township and celebrate getting together after the pandemic we went through and now the hurricane and everything else. That's the only other thing, Mr. Gray.
If I could just add one more thing, as far as the power outages go, we have a liaison with PICO, Suzanne Ryan, who I think through the years has been very receptive and attentive and effective with our issues. And I would ask our manager to reach out to her and see if she could address the specific outages that happen repeatedly down in your neck of the woods. See if we can get PICO to pay a little attention and maybe do something about the problem.
Thank you, Kath. Tessie?
Yeah, thank you. I really also agree with the other supervisors. I appreciate all the community input tonight. This has been so fruitful to hear input. And I will just say that even aside, I didn't know flooding was so bad along Brookside, but ever since I've lived in my neighborhood, there is no storm drainage at all. When the community subdivision was built, that wasn't a perceived need. So I'm sure there are other older neighborhoods in Lower Gwinnett that we need to take a look at in the coming years. And hopefully we can champion and complete our strategic plan for Lower Gwinnett, and floodwater mitigation will be certainly part of that. So, thank you.
Thank you, Danielle.
I just want to echo everything that my fellow supervisors have stated, and I appreciate their support. Also want to thank my neighbors for coming out and advocating for themselves. We have a tight-knit community where we communicate with each other around what's going on and work together, and I appreciate that communication and that camaraderie. I also kind of just want to touch on how grateful I am that I live in this community, but also want to support. I went to Wissahickon. I was Wissahickon Trojans. I kind of grew up thinking that Upper Dublin is my rival. However, as I've gotten to be an adult, I can appreciate that there are neighbors as well. And I want to send my thoughts and prayers to those in Upper Dublin that suffered far worse than we did in Lower Gwinnett, and how we truly dodged the magnitude of the tornado and the storm. And just encourage all of our community to support our neighbors as they kind of rebuild and are moving towards the road to recovery. I think it's important to kind of focus on what you do have and what you still do have, as others are still grappling with the idea of rebuilding and having to ensure safe structure and home. So just wanted to send that out to the community and encourage everyone to support Upper Dublin.
Well, and to piggyback on that, our friends down at Ambler Yards are hosting a food truck amusement sort of thing benefiting the Upper Dublin Educational Foundation, the UD Strong effort, trying to raise funds to, they have a big rebuilding effort down there. So they're having music, they're having food trucks, activities for the kids. I don't remember what the time is, but again, it's at Ambler Yards this Friday, probably 4 to 8, 5 to 9, something like that.
Thank you, Supervisor Hunsinger, for finishing my statement for me.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were done.
No, but it's okay.
Good, okay. So, so some challenging issues. I mean, well, tonight, one, a new development. We're all worried about water runoff, and we need to be. It's causing a problem in newer and older developments. We have jurisdiction over the newer developments because of all the laws that's been passed. Older developments, it's quite difficult to get a handle on it because the developers weren't required or didn't, for whatever reason, build stormwater controls into the developments. And that's a fundamental problem. And so now we're coming in and trying to fix those problems. And the dam was on our radar before this happened because it needed to be, because the school district, and I'm not trying to pick on them too much, but the school district was not all that interested in spending educational resources on stormwater controls. And that's why we had the conversation we had with them. So we're doing more of this, and it's just not Brookside. It's a much bigger issue because there's flooding. Our water goes to Ambler. Basically, that's what happens. And Upper Dublin gets all the water from Ambler, and it's all, Springfield, you talk to them, they got hammered pretty well too. So it's the entire Wissahickon Basin, and that's what we're trying to address. And we have a really good opportunity here to look at Brookside in that area and say, hey, look, this is an emerging need that needs action right away. And I think we can do that. And like I said, it was already on the radar screen. But part of the problem with water, nobody wants to be responsible for it. It's kind of came out tonight, right? The drinking water, well, that's Ambler, drinking the water company. And, but nobody has the center. Everybody has their bubbles, their towers, their individual areas, and we're just not connected in a way to solve problems. In this township, in the Clean Water Partnership, we're trying to do that. And I'm sure it's got to be pretty frustrating if you live on Brookside Avenue. It's got to be really, really fun. You either have too much water or you don't have any you can drink. You're getting hammered in both directions. Lower Gwinnett Police Department. We had a ceremony tonight. And it's hard to underestimate the value that it brings, the police department brings to Lower Gwinnett, because they're so well educated. they have training in conflict reduction, to mitigate instead of exacerbate problems when they want to de-escalate, and they can think. It sounds like I'm exaggerating, right? That like it doesn't matter. What it does matter, because they can think, look at a problem, and they can think about what needs to be done to resolve it without making it a bigger deal. We have a school resource officer located over at the high school primarily. She's got a doctorate. People come to her with problems that aren't necessarily directly police related, but might be, and then she works to resolve it. So our police department here, Rex is 26 years is a long time. And people come here as police officers, they don't leave. They don't transfer out. And we have a new officer sworn in, which is, we don't do that very often. And we get the best pick of the litter, because people like police officers that come out of the academy, they want to work in Lower Gwinnett for good reason, right? So all of those things make our community a really nice place to live and work. And we're going to work on the problem on Brookside Avenue, and we're going to try to resolve this and do what we can to bring the attention that it needs. Thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned.
No problem. So-